We should be going live. Should be. I'll try not to sing so I don't scare people away. Because we could be live right now and I just don't know it.
I'm sure we are.
Sure we are. Oh, sorry to everybody that I'm serenading out there. Let's see. We're out here somewhere. We are out here somewhere. Problems finding us because I have problems finding us. Okay, hang tight, kids. We're going to start this puppy up in just a second. There we are. There we are. Oh, sorry to everybody that I'm serious. Okay, we had to turn that off. You know, that's one thing I wish I could stop when we do these broadcasts, but it just blares at me. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning. We have a very interesting topic to discuss today.
Yeah. So good morning. Happy November, first Monday of November. It's gonna be an interesting week.
Oh, is it ever? It is going to be an interesting week. And Lori, why is it going to be an interesting week?
Well, we've got a lot of things going on in our lives. We've got the NAR conference, governance meetings starts this week, and we have a very important national election tomorrow. We're all aware of
that. We do.
Hopefully, everybody has voted or will be voting, and then it'll be Wednesday, and we don't know what to expect.
Yeah, we don't know. We really don't know what to expect, do we?
So I'm getting my popcorn out tomorrow and just gonna lay low on Wednesday and see where everybody is in the world. And I'm gonna stay off Facebook.
I think that might be wise. If you're a Twitter addict, it's going to be really tough, really, really tough. But you know, one post I saw earlier this week that I thought was interesting is, what you going to be drinking election night? You know? I mean, and one person said tequila. It's the perfect drink because it's great for when times are good. It's great when times are bad. You can't go wrong with tequila.
Well, I think
I can't do that.
I think that applies to any alcoholic beverage. You drink it when you're happy. You drink it when you're sad. I mean, seriously.
So,
but I just have a great new bottle of tequila straight from Mexico. So I could get into that.
Well, I have my happy alcohol selections and my not so happy alcohol selections. So we'll see what I bust into. It'll be interesting, but that's neither here nor there. We're not going to talk politics this morning.
Yeah, not talking
we
politics.
Have more important things to discuss, right, Lori?
We do. So many of you know that Lisa and I are very active locally and at the state association levels, as well as we actively participate at NAR. This year, I'm an NAR director. Lisa has been an NAR director in the past. She's not currently this year, but she will be next year. But nonetheless, she's very active with all that's happening at NAR. So she's staying in the loop on that and part of the discussions and attending the informational sessions so that we can have this conversation here and among our colleagues. So the main topic of conversation that we've all been focused on for the upcoming NAR meeting is some changes to professional standards, specifically to the Code of Ethics. So that falls under the purview of the Professional Standards Committee, which is over 100 members. And one of the things that one topic they've been engaging in for half a year this year has been updating the Code of Ethics to apply. I'm trying to word this very carefully, as you can all tell, because it's an important conversation, and there's some great points on both sides. And so the conversation is surrounding the hate speech, the defamatory speech that we've all seen a major increase of this year. whether it be in person, you know, just chatting to people, overhearing people, whether it's on social media, through written posts, through videos. There's a number of ways that a lot of ugliness has been out there this year. And that's the reason I said I'm not going to be on Facebook on Wednesday, because regardless of the outcome of the election, there's going to be opinions on both sides, and it's going to be ugly. So anything you want to add before we kind of dig into the nuts and bolts of it?
Pretty much you covered most of it. You know, we had a forum this morning, a professional standards forum through the National Association of REALTORS and their governance meetings. And, you know, and honestly, it's like, you don't have to be a director. You don't have to be on a committee to take part in these. If you're registered, you can't register for only governance meetings now. It's too late for that. But if you're going to be going to the expo portion of the NAR meetings, there is a charge for that. But you can access all of the governance meetings that are not closed. And if there's something that is important to you, I'm not sure, are they recording them where we can get playback?
Yeah, that one that we watched this morning, when I was logging in, it did say, are you trying to access live? Or are you trying to access the replay? So that one will have the replay available if you have that access, if you've pre-registered. But it will only, actually, it will only be available if you attend it. I think I remember them stating that.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, because I think you have to register for everything. So, you know, if there is something going on out there that, and you've already registered, I highly recommend going on to the agendas, seeing what's going on, seeing if the meetings are accessible, and go in, because this is stuff, I don't want to say it's the high level stuff. It's not high level above your pay grade kind of stuff. This is the stuff that's being handed down to the state associations and local associations from basically the mothership. And it's your opportunity to hear the rules being made on a national level. And that's exactly where we are with this current topic, change of standards code of ethics that will apply to everybody that is a realtor. So I think I'm done.
Okay.
What would you like to say?
So I'm getting a little bit of delay on my side. So I think my internet's a little bit unstable this morning. And so hopefully we can get through this.
And I'm not ignoring you, but I just got a hot lead, so I got to send them a message back. So take it away, Lori.
All righty, so it's on me now. All right, we're good. So I'm gonna pull up a document, which is the recommendations from the Pro Standards Committee. So I'll take a step back. The local, the state, and the national associations have all been reporting for many, many months that they have been getting a lot of inquiries of what do we do about agents who have been posting terrible comments on social media, or they have been overheard sharing terrible comments. And so because we feel like our associations should be able to weigh in on this, the reality is there's nothing in our code of ethics that gives them the opportunity to do anything related to investigating or discipline, because our code of ethics specifically applies to real estate related activities and transactions. And our opinions and our comments that are not real estate related don't fall under the code of ethics guidelines. And so the question in front of this committee then became, well, is there anything we can do? And so there was at least one state association that submitted a letter to NAR saying, we need help. We need some guidance from the top down in order to be able to do something. So stemming from that letter, the committee went into action. They actually pulled the topic from the Committee of 100 and put it into a specific working group, which is called the, you can see it here in this background, the Interpretations and Procedures Advisory Board. So they're a subgroup of the Professional Standards Committee from NAR. And it's my understanding that these are the people who have been involved in pro standards for many, many years. They have read deep into it and have been part of a number of conversations over the years to really study what is in our code of ethics and how does that apply to professional standards and then trickle down to us at the local level for enforcement and hearings. So it's my understanding this is the best of the best. These are the people that know this. They're like scholars on our pro standards process. So I'm going to scroll down, and we can put these attachments in, waiting for my page to scroll. We can put these attachments in the nerdy group so that everyone can read them. It's not that they're hard to find, but if you're not on their site often, you know, it may take you a while. So we'll go ahead and put it in there. So where this starts really is changing a policy statement in the Code of Ethics and Arbitrations manual is the first piece that they need to do in order to affect the change that they're recommending. So again, these are all recommendations that came out of that advisory committee that then went back to the full professional standards committee who approved it. Then it went to the executive team at NAR, which is made up of the national president and the entire leadership team. There's, I don't even know how many people are on that full leadership team, as well as multiple layers of lawyers looking at this, including NAR's lawyers, some outside counsel. So a lot of very intelligent people, a lot of people very involved in our industry have looked at this and said, yes, these are the recommendations we want the board of directors to approve. So what will happen, when we'll go over what these recommendations are, but what the process is this will go to the board of directors. We'll have discussion on these recommendations, and then we will vote on whether these will be approved or not. And if they're approved, then they become effective. If they're not approved, they could be modified and then maybe approved. We don't know. We don't know where the conversations will lead, but ultimately that's the process. They present the recommendations, we have discussion on it. It's either approved, modified, or rejected. So the first change that would need to take place is the policy statement in the Code of Ethics and Arbitration Manual, and it's specifically policy statement 29. And so you can see here on the screen, this is the section we're referring to. And so anything that has a strike through, they are looking to remove it. Anything that's underlined is new. So we have a strike through here, and we have a strike through in the first part of the sentence, and then a couple other pieces throughout. And then we've got an addition here and an addition here. And so the original version I'll just read is applicability of the Code of Ethics to non-real estate related activities. While realtors are encouraged to follow the principles of the Code of Ethics in all of their activities, a realtor shall be subject to disciplinary action under the Code of Ethics only with respect to real estate related activities and transactions involving the realtor. So essentially, although we are at a higher standard where we should basically follow the principles of the Code of Ethics, this specific policy only applies to real estate related activities and transactions involving a realtor as it reads today. So the change that they're looking to make, that they're recommending, is that they strike out the to non-real estate related activities and this first part of the sentence, and what you're left with is a realtor shall be subject to disciplinary action under the Code of Ethics with respect to all of their activities, period. Okay, so the original policy basically limits any action against you to your real estate related activities. The change would now apply to all of your activities. And specifically this stemmed from, you know, all that we're seeing on social media and publicly. And in the webinar this morning, they mentioned, you know, it's not like comments and actions are new that are problematic. It's just now with smartphones, they're being captured. And so with them being captured and shared, the depth of the problem is being more exposed. And so the question at this point is, okay, if this is where we start, are we as a membership comfortable with the code of ethics now applying to basically all of our activities? So essentially, as a practitioner, we were limited to just our actions involving the business. But now as a realtor, so, you know, we're a licensee first, but then we're a realtor by membership. So as a realtor, are we comfortable with the code now applying to all of our actions? And I'll pause right here because the applicability of it to all of our actions is very specific. It's not just, you know, a blanket, you know, now it applies to everything. It's very specific, and we'll get there next. Anything you want to add here, Lisa?
No, I think the thing that really made me waffle around on my position quite a bit was finding out the limitations of the applicability of the rules, because it's being put out there, I believe, it's being put out there where people are thinking that this is going to be an all-encompassing, if you do something in your personal life that may or may not be viewed as morally pure, I guess, for lack of a better statement, you know, something that somebody may take offense with, that you do, whatever it is that you do, that they can say, oh, this person's a bad person because of this. Well, no, that's not how this works. It has specific limitations. And Lori, do we want to go ahead and play the video?
Yeah, we can. I just want to add one more thing. You know, you're absolutely right. My initial understanding of this, because I hadn't read the details and they had not released the video explanations at that point, was that, yeah, this would basically just be a blanket against our entire lives. And initially my thought was that's too far.
Yeah.
As I've been learning more, and they've been, you know, there's been a lot of conversation about this, and there's been a lot of really great conversation on both sides of the argument. But what I found most helpful was some of these videos explaining the depth of what this covers, what it would cover now. And I think there's a lot of people who have not gotten that memo. And I'll be honest, I hadn't gotten it until basically this weekend when I took the time to watch and learn. And so by no means am I the expert on this. I mean, I literally had my crash course this weekend on it, trying to dig through the number of conversations, because, you know, we have this portal for NAR as a director and committee member that functionally is very similar to Facebook. You start a thread and then people can respond, and you can put videos, you can put attachments. There's got to be like 25 threads at this point, and each of those threads has a number of comments. And so you get the notifications and you're like, oh my God, there's even more, there's even more. So I was a bit like, oh, I need to like take a whole day to digest this. And that's exactly what I had to do in order to be able to understand it, speak to it. And I'm still unsure of where my final position will land. So I just wanted to echo that, yes, there's a lot of misunderstanding out there.
Yeah, and rightfully so, because this is an extremely complicated subject. I got a little bit of peace with it. I still am not fully at peace with it, but once I had it outlined this morning in the member forum that they had online, it was like, okay, so you're going to get more into detail. But you know what? I'm going to let Matt, who is the chair of professional standards at NAR, let you know about this. So let me share my screen, and we'll, you know, and right off the bat, I'm going to let you know that there's some really bad language in here. Really, 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 really bad language in here. If you're sensitive and you haven't already seen this, you know, you just might want to think twice. But this is what's happening in social media. Okay, so if I'm hoping that you guys all got to see this. If you haven't, here's what's going on.
Hi, Realtor colleagues. My name is Matt DeFanis, and I serve as the 2020 chair of the NAR Professional Standards Committee. As most of you are now aware, my 100-plus member committee passed a comprehensive set of recommendations out of our committee, which is now headed to the NAR Board of Directors for consideration and a vote at its November meeting. In a nutshell, those recommendations involve a couple of key points. One is expanding the applicability of the Code of Ethics beyond its current limitations of within the context of a real estate transaction or real estate related activities. Then another part of the proposal is to add a new standard of practice under Article 10, that's the Fair Housing article, which would prohibit discriminatory hate speech by realtors. So that proposal is now out there. It's generated a lot of strong opinions. We totally expected that, and we frankly respect it and welcome it. But I want to invite you to push pause for just a moment, because I want to take a couple of steps back and set the stage for your analysis of those proposals by inviting you to consider with me an important threshold question. It's an important threshold question that you really have to think about first, and that is the status quo really a problem? Now, if you had asked me that question with respect to issues of racial equity and housing discrimination, if you had asked me that question 5 years ago, I would have said no. If you're looking at me on video, you can tell I'm a white guy, and I'm from a small metro area in central Illinois. No, housing discrimination is not a problem. The status quo is not a problem. Sure, I'm aware that we had issues generations ago and they were solved or largely ameliorated with the passage of the Fair Housing Act in 1968, and 6 years later, enshrining fair housing in our Code of Ethics starting in 1974. So yeah, we had issues. Playing field has since been leveled. Let's all join hands, get over it, move on together, right? My opinion has since changed. And what's really driven my change in opinion is the fact that I've been blessed through some pretty unlikely circumstances with some truly transformative relationships with my Black colleagues. And more than just that, I've also had a lot of opportunities to spend time in the heart of the Black community. And there is an unavoidable takeaway that my unlikely experience has struck me with, and that is the differences between Black America and white America remain appalling. Colleagues, remember, we quite literally drew the color lines. Our fingerprints as realtors are all over the redlining maps, which decades, 52 years after fair housing became the law of the land, those fair housing maps still scar our landscape by continuing to define color lines in our residential housing patterns. The difference is still appalling. At the full Professional Standards Committee meeting that I got to host in June 29th, that was the first meeting where we considered all the issues that are now part of this package of recommendations. We kicked off that meeting with a panel of guests that were there to talk about real estate and race. We got the benefit of hearing firsthand accounts and experiences from 5 Black colleagues, realtors, and realtist leaders who shared what they experienced. Some common themes that came out of their conversation with us: constantly living in anticipation of the next dehumanizing, embarrassing, humiliating moment that might very well play out in front of their clients. Getting less respect when they show up dressed to perfection than I get when I show up to a client appointment wearing shorts. Constantly having to prove themselves in ways that I don't. Working twice as hard on deals that are often more complicated for half the pay when they can get the deals closed. And lastly, this universal experience of being the only one in the room. That is, anytime they would seek to get involved in organized real estate or realtor-related activities, anything outside the confines of the Black community, knowing they were going to show up and be the only one in the room, have every set of eyes looking at them, and in many cases have absolutely nobody speak to them. And yet they press forward, and yet they are all influencers and leaders in our industry in spite of that. Folks, our status quo right now, as it exists in our industry, our status quo says it's okay for realtors to proclaim any of the following real-world examples that I'm going to read to you verbatim in a moment. It's okay to say vile, abhorrent, disgusting things and still to wear the realtor badge. The same realtor badge that I proudly wear, you know, the one that signifies that I voluntarily hold myself to a higher standard. I'm a realtor. I pledge to live by the code. That realtor brand. So buckle up, because I'm going to share with you some verbatim quotes from a small sampling of the mountain of hate speech that has come up in recent months. All of these posted by realtors. I think Black people bring out the worst in us. We always knew Black people were violent. They are not Christian. Now, this next one, you have to understand, this was shouted into the camera while the poster was shaking an assault-style rifle. My response to the looting and rioting that's going on, I wish nigga would. I went out and spent $1,500 on this motherfucker. Please, I want to use it. You call me white boy, cracker, honky, whitey, caveman, and that's okay. But when I call you nigger, kike, towelhead, sand nigger, camel jockey, beaner, gook, or chink, you call me a racist. And finally, homosexuals and lesbians are murderers, according to the scriptures. That's the status quo, colleagues. That is the status quo. And so my threshold question to you is whether the status quo is acceptable. And if it's not, and you now know what it consists of, if it's not acceptable, what is the best way forward? I don't expect us to arrive in consensus on these issues, and indeed we have not. You have not disappointed me in that regard. I don't expect us to conclude our conversation on these issues in consensus. I simply ask that you be ready and willing to grapple earnestly with the proposals that we have brought before you for your consideration. And so I'm going to share a parting thought. I'm going to share a quote that comes from the book, Is Everyone Really Equal? We ask that you grapple with the claims we present rather than strive to maintain the opinions that you already hold. Grappling requires engagement with intellectual humility, curiosity, and generosity. Grappling is not dependent on agreement. Colleagues, I look forward to the spirited discussion. I look forward to the civil discourse. I look forward to your constructive concerns, criticisms, and critiques. On behalf of my 100+ colleagues on the Professional Standards Committee and the several more that are on the Professional Standards Interpretations and Procedures Advisory Board, please bring it on. We want to have the conversations. We want to have uncomfortable conversations. We want to grapple over these issues earnestly with you. You all know where to find me. I will look forward to your correspondence. Thank you so much for your consideration.
So that's that. It is a powerful message. Hearing people's reactions would be interesting to that, but unfortunately, this is reality, folks. And, I'm pretty sure most of the people in this group have seen it themselves on social media, whether it be on Facebook or Twitter or something like that. Perhaps you've seen it in your neighborhood. Perhaps you've heard a colleague make a comment that is really should never have been said. I don't know. Let's open this up for, I'd love to say let's open this up for chat. I mean, who knows? Maybe I could just throw out the link real quick if anybody wants to, get involved here in Zoom land. But I mean, Lori, what do you think about that?
I think that it is disturbing that we see these types of comments today from anybody. And I think the majority of the people agree on that point. So that's not really the issue. I suppose the ones that don't agree are the ones that are saying it. They don't seem to think there's a problem with it.
The 4 people that gave that video a thumbs down.
Yeah. So, the question before us is, do we modify the code of ethics, which is our code of conduct for our industry, to be able to hold realtors to a higher standard? The concern is you are representing an industry, you are representing an organization anytime you're out there publicly, whether it's in person or on social media. And, a lot of people will say, well, that's my personal page. It has nothing to do with business, but we all know, being salespeople, that every opportunity we have, we want people to know what we do for work. And so because of that, we may have a personal post with a personal message, but it still is going to be viewed through the lens of, well, by profession, this is what you do. And it raises the question, do we as professionals want the public to think this is who we are? And we have a great motto with the National Association of REALTORS. When we focus on the positive things we do, we talk about that's who we are, the letter R for realtor. That's who we are. Well, guess what? All the negativity and hate, that's also who we are. And so the recommendations are to be able to allow the local association to be able to take some action against realtors who are number one, breaking the law, but number two, damaging the reputation of our industry and our organization.
And I think it's important to note that the only part of your personal life that they would be scrutinizing at all is making a post or making a statement that you are hate speech, doing slurs, saying something vile about people in a protected group. It's, if I want to sit there and say, Lori, your XYZ party, you're an idiot, you're a blanking idiot, you're a horrible person because of the way you think. Guess what? That doesn't fall into this. Political affiliation, political views is not part of this. It's only statements against protected classes. So that's an important differential, is if somebody's saying things about you that you don't like, but it doesn't fall into something about you in one of the protected classes. And this rule only goes, since it's an NAR rule, is only the federally protected classes. Now, California's got a whole lot more. You get out that wonderful Fair Housing and Discrimination Advisory form, we got 24 of them on there. Now, I'm sure in California, we'd have to really watch what we say here. But in other states, it's only the protected classes on a federal level that this change in the code of ethics applies to. I'm pretty sure that's what they said this morning. Lori, did you get the same thing?
Yeah, that question came up in, there was about a 30-minute conversation on this topic, and there was a written Q&A. And so they were pulling questions from that. And that question did come up. What if a local municipality or the state has additional protected classes? Does that apply? And it's interesting that that question came up, because as I was reading the notes over the weekend, that was the exact question that I had as well, because in California, we do have so many more. And so their answer today was, no, it only applies to the federal one. However, I think that's a very valid question, and I hope that it comes up at the board meeting for discussion, because although we have only a limited number that apply across the entire country, it's not difficult to say, and any other protected classes in your state. I mean, that's not hard to add. And therefore, you can't make something that applies in California apply everywhere if you list all of the protected classes. But we can do it in a general way because California didn't always have 24 protected classes. And so as new ones have been added, you don't want to have to change every single place where it's referenced. So it's an easy fix, and I hope that we actually make that fix, because in my opinion, we have some other protected classes in our list for California that equally need to be protected. They don't just, become less than for this purpose. And so I think that should be expanded, and it's easy to do that, just all protected classes. But as of the recommendation, the way it stands, yes, it's those protected classes. And so Lisa's accurate. They're specifically talking about the standard of practice under Article 10. The standard of practice is 10-5. And so where we were looking at that policy number 29 change to expand beyond real estate related activities and transactions, this is the place where it applies. And it's very specific. You must not use harassing speech, hate speech, epithets, or slurs based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And so they were trying to give examples, and it's tricky. I don't know how you felt, Lisa, but it's tricky when you try to give examples, because personally, I think you could word something in a way that would not be interpreted as harassing or hate speech, and yet the root of it still is. Further in the recommendations, they talk about changes they would make to definitions. And so trying to find that particular spot, because there is a place where they explain, we'll use Webster's dictionary to explain harassing, and they have a specific set of guidelines that would become part of the Code of Ethics in the appendix section that would talk about how they would use specific, I don't want to say specific sets of criteria, but a specific process to determine if what was written or said met the requirement. And again, it's tricky to give those examples, because you could say something, let's just say gender. You could say something that is offensive about gender. I could easily say, oh, men fill in the blank. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a hate speech. I could say men are generally taller than women. Okay, so that's an opinion, that's maybe an observation. It is focused around a protected class because gender is a protected class. But was the comment I made harassing or hate or a slur? I don't think so. My intent was not to have it be perceived as that. But I don't know, if I was a man, I might think it was.
And you just touched on what I was thinking about myself. I'm gonna put this back on to, can you quit sharing just so we can have there we go, so we can have our conversation. I tried to do it in the gallery mode, but it was having none of that on Facebook.
Okay.
I think one thing that's going to be important is, what is a person's intent? What was the spirit in which the statement was made? And that's something they didn't really, they tried to discuss it in the forum today, but I think that that's part of, you can make a statement that men are generally taller than women. Okay. Are you degrading women because they're not as tall as men? No, you're just stating a fact. But if you say, look at that woman over there, she's a freak because she's taller than all the men, what was the intent of that statement? Is the intent is you're making fun of somebody, and Yvonne put in here, and this is where I was going to go, but who would determine that? And that is where the problem with all of this lies. Who is going to become the judge and jury, for lack of better terms, and saying what is our core baseline and how do we determine that intent? Now, I think from the examples that we were giving in the video, they can pretty much got their intent,
Yeah.
you know, and if it's, you know, if it's an egregious remark that's being made, those are probably going to be pretty cut and dry, because most of the stuff that I'm seeing on Facebook is, you know, darn good and well where these people are coming from. But what if it is that gray area that somebody said something or made a post that they didn't intend for it to come across the way that it came across, but somebody took offense to it? That's where it's going to get interesting, in my ever so humble opinion. I personally, if you're friends with me on Facebook, which I think most of you are, you know, I used to be pretty out there on Facebook, and now I'm pretty darn quiet, because I had an incident that went down that I don't know if it would have fallen into the category that they're saying would be a violation of code of ethics. It got to the point where I can't post anything on my Facebook page without somebody making just a ridiculous remark. So I'm sticking to fluff where it's safe. However,
and it's important to explain that a little further. So Lisa made an innocent post, and somebody else, a realtor, posted a comment and then started attacking her. And so her original post, it's my opinion, would have nothing to do with this topic we're discussing. It was actually in support of something, and that's her public view of in support of something positive, affecting positive change related to the topic of racism. And somebody else from the opposite point of view attacked her. And so when we were chatting about it, you know, I said, well, if that person was just bullying you, you're not in a protected class, so it's not, this doesn't fix that. It doesn't remedy that. But if he said something about the protected group you were speaking positively about, then yes, it could. Now, it's important to note too, that if these changes pass, it's not retroactive. And so they're looking at a possible immediate implementation, which would then be November 13th. But again, if it passes, is the first hurdle, and then the date could be changed. They could say, well, you know, we'll make it effective January 1st. They want to make it effective immediately to demonstrate the importance of this. Why wait? Why do we need an extra, 6 weeks to be able to say a bunch of discriminatory things online, and then, we'll behave? So I think that that's an important note. So that it won't be retroactive. So anything that you may have posted that you're unsure of, you don't have to worry about. But yeah, the example we gave with the men are generally taller than women is a pretty vanilla example in comparison. And so they do have some guidelines. The judge and jury, since that's been mentioned, it's actually mentioned, labeled that way in the FAQ, is our professional standards committees at our local associations. And so, you don't just get to show up for a professional standards position. You have to go through extensive training and then participate in the meetings. And the way it works at Orange County Realtors, and presumably at many of the associations across California, is that a complaint will come in, it's reviewed, the paperwork is reviewed for completion, make sure it's completely filled out. And then a grievance committee will review the complaint and make a preliminary determination of whether they think one of the code of ethics was violated or not. So based on what's in front of them, do they see that, yes, this potentially could be a violation? So they're not making a determination then. They're making a preliminary determination that, yeah, it kind of looks like there's a violation. There could be a violation here. So then it progresses to a professional standards committee who has a hearing on it. And it's a 3-person committee at Orange County Realtors. And these people have even more training. And so with the hearing, then you bring in both parties, and both parties, just like in court, we've all seen court TV, each party gets to explain their side. So presumably from that, we've got people who know the code of ethics extremely well, who have done this before, who can then look at the guidelines that they've drafted out to say, okay, here are the guidelines to determine if this is really a violation of 10-5. And part of it is looking at the context. In what context did this statement come out? And to me, it feels like it can be very procedural, which is a good thing. But then there's also that other side, which can be subjective or bias. And so I guess what they're leaning on is, well, you've got more than one person looking at it. So if I find something online and I find it offensive, I'm not the one that's the judge and jury on it. If I file a complaint, then ultimately the Pro Standards Committee is the one that's going to make that determination. I'm just the one that said, hey, I see this and I think I feel it's hate speech. They may look at it and say, no, in the context that it's written, it wouldn't, by the I guess the common person standard, be considered offensive or hate, so they're going to use this litmus test of, okay, we all kind of know what's offensive. We all kind of know what's hate speech, and they'll lean on those definitions, the Webster's dictionary definitions and the guidelines. And so there's all these checks and balances, for, lack of a better comparison, that the sense is this will be able to be appropriately reviewed and determined whether this person did in fact violate the article.
I'm going to go to a couple of the comments here, because one of them, Prisha, she put in a really good remark, and it's like, I think they should be allowed to say what they want so the public knows who they are. It will eventually hurt their business. These people are Googling and looking up agents. And, Prisha, there's part of me that agrees with that. It kind of goes back to, I think, a statement that I probably made a few weeks ago here, when the Fair Housing Advisory came out, where, you walk into a listening appointment and you think you've got this nice little old lady sitting there that wouldn't hurt a fly and bake you cookies. And then she says, shh, I don't want to sell to any of this group because I can't do that to my neighbors and I don't want to sell to them. And it's like, well, what do you do? I took the listing after I educated my gal, and I've had that happen numerous times. There's this one particular gal that always sticks in my mind when I come back with this example, because I took the opportunity to tell her she didn't have that right. It was against the law that she had to sell her house to whoever the qualified buyer was, which ironically was a member of a minority group. So, she came around when I explained to her. Now it's easier because we have the Fair Housing Advisory. But what if I hadn't? What if I had done I'm sorry, I can't work with somebody like you. I'm leaving. Go find yourself another realtor. What would have happened then? She would have kept cycling through realtors until she found somebody that's like, you know what, honey, I know exactly what you mean. I ain't going to sell to those people either. She would have found that person sooner or later. But is that right? No, it's not right. It's not right. And it's kind of the same with this. Yeah, I kind of think it's like, dude, you want to post this crap on your Facebook page? And you're like, people are going to see this, right? People are watching. And it's like the guy who popped up on my page and made all of those harebrained, ridiculous remarks. Was he one of my 3,400 friends on Facebook? Yeah. Do I know him? No. Was he a realtor? And I'm like, okay, he's a fellow realtor. I'm going to accept his friend request. And now I got the guy sitting there threatening my livelihood because he didn't like the position I took on something that I promoted because I feel with my heart it was the right thing to do. He threatened me. He was going to go to my farm and tell people, this is what this woman believes. You don't want to deal with her, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Did I really need that on my page? No. But was it good to find out who the heck this crazy guy was? Absolutely. He is now blocked and unfriended like many other people. But, what about all my friends that saw this exchange between realtors, between professionals in the same industry? That I've got this guy that I don't know from, a county away insulting me. And now my friends, my honest to God friends, get to see this. How does that make our profession look? We got enough trouble with this profession. We're right up there with, the really crappy lawyers and the used car salesmen. We need to elevate our profession. I agree with what was said in the video. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been thinking that this is an issue. Now it's huge. And it's not just because I had some guy come on my page. It's because I've invested time and energy to educate myself, which if this can do anything, if we can just friggin' educate people, it's like, hey, it's 2020, kind of a crappy year, but it's still 2020. We need to kind of get hip and with it. And, our industry has such a horrible reputation. We do not need to add to it by allowing people to literally make fools out of themselves to many of the people that are going to stumble across the guy with a, AK-47 saying those horrible things. We got to do it to protect ourselves. And you know what? I would love to think that we're going to see less of this, but that message is going to take a long time to get out there. I don't know. I'll get off my soapbox.
Well, no, I mean, it's a good response. And Parisha, thank you for the question, because I think that a lot of people feel that same way. I agree with your point on that. And I think where some of us are struggling on figuring out how to vote when it comes our time to vote as an NAR director on this topic is that, yes, you can see both sides of it. And, I'd like to think that people would just do the right thing, but they don't. And that's why we have a code of ethics to begin with. And that's why it has been modified over the years to include, the new crappy activities that people are doing. And we have to tell them, you can't do that. So I agree that, if you're a jerk online, people are going to see it and they're going to not want to associate with you, whether it's a client or a colleague or a friend. And yeah, I mean, I think that we have had a strange opportunity this year in not being able to be in person at some of these conferences, because there are some people that if we ran into in the hall, it would be very uncomfortable because we've seen some things and their beliefs. We've read their beliefs and it's shocking. So I'd like to think that we don't have to tell people and we don't have to modify the code of ethics, but the reality is we do. And as the world evolves over years in different ways, we have to update laws and this code of ethics. These are the standards that we're expected to operate at. We do have to update them because things change. If we didn't update some things, it would read, the MLS book, which we don't have the MLS book anymore. Everything is online. So we have to make these adjustments as time goes on and technologies and the way we do business changes. And this kind of falls in line with where we are with how people are conducting their business and just simply behaving. So I personally, as an NAR director, am still trying to read through all of the number of comments, the hundreds of comments, pulling, points that I think are relevant on both sides to try to figure out, okay, so I agree in theory with what the recommendations are. Absolutely. There will be people who don't, but I happen to believe in them. So the question for me is this the right process? Is this the right solution? And I don't know. I don't know yet.
Yeah, I'm kind of out there too. You know, I'm really conflicted in really different ways. And, you know, part of me is like, absolutely we need to do this, but, you know, who's really going to know intent if it's one of those gray situations? Once I found out that they weren't going to look at every single thing you've ever done in your life, because, you know, hey, I'm sure all of us in this group here, you know, you do something at some point that you're not proud of, and it's like, wow, are they going to come back and get me on that? You know, who's going to, you know, who's the judge and jury? And hey, you know, why should you do that? That's off the table. However, situation like the one I had, which was, you know, bullying and, you know, hate speech, and, you know, that was a fine line, but I really don't think it would be covered in what they're saying here. So what about situations that are, you know, that are that gray line? Who's gonna, you know, that obviously was not proper behavior, because there were people that were going to go file a complaint on this guy on my behalf for his conduct. And that's another thing that was going around out there by another source. There's a person that has a blog. I'm not going to put the name out there because I don't want to promote or detract or whatever. But he suggested doing a conduct unbecoming of a realtor to address it. Do I like that? Yes and no, but because it's even more ambiguous. I think that with the rules that they have set up now, where if, you know, you say something against a protected class, well, you know, pretty much you shouldn't be doing that anyhow, because legally you really can't do that. But, you know, it is policing our profession a little bit. And Lord knows we, you know, with all of the trash flying around out there that isn't about a protected class, you know, just to be able to, you know, help some people from the unnecessary hurtful things that are being said would be nice. Maybe we can address just being a civil human being later, because that seems to be a lost art at the moment. You know, I think it's one step at a time, but I think that, you know, I would like to encourage one of my association's directors. I'm not sure how we're looking on the screen here, but right now she's above me on my computer. I would like my association's director, you know, I personally feel it's a good thing to vote for, knowing what I know now. Now, I'm sure there's probably more out there that I need to educate myself, but if you are a member of Orange County Realtors and you want more information, talk to a director, talk to a person whose voice is going to be your voice. If you feel strongly that this should be passed, let Lori know. Let the other directors know. We're blessed that we have 6 directors with our association due to our size. If you're not a member of our association and you want your voice to be heard, if you know who the designated NAR directors are or who that one person is, reach out to them. If you don't know, contact your board and let them know you want your voice to be heard. So you can contact the NAR director yourself and let them know your opinion, because that's how this works. You know, if they don't hear from you, they're going to vote the way that they think it should be. If they hear how the members feel, then they're going to take that into consideration, because you know what, those NAR directors, they need to answer to you. Now, can't talk about the 2020 directors, but I can tell you about the 2021 directors. We're going to be having conversations about this stuff next year. And we want input. We want to know what the members, whether you're our association or not our association, we want to know what it is that you're thinking, what needs to be discussed, what needs to be addressed, how you think votes should go. And we want to bring back to you the information. So, you know, we're all about communication. It's something that Lori and I have been in full agreement for years. It's like, we go to these meetings and we don't tell anybody what we did and what we heard. And I can make that promise for the both of us. Next year, you're going to know what the heck we're doing. because it's important. It's important for you, and it's important to spread the word amongst our colleagues that don't know this stuff. I mean, really, how many realtors even know this is happening? Anybody? Anybody? And I'm going to go to a couple of comments here. Let's see. You know, I will say this. Parisha says the only change I see that could be made is an incentive for using a realtor or offering additional incentives for getting other races to move into or change the neighborhood. I'm interested in seeing what NAR comes up with, or realtors that have a broad range of closed transactions showing a diverse set of clients. I'm happy to say this is top of mind. Fair housing, diversity, inclusion is top of mind at not only NAR, but it's really top of mind at CAR. And if anybody who's in here, if you are not a member of Deliberately Fair Housing, it is like a sibling. I'm trying to be right. I always want to say sister group, but then I would be discriminating. our sibling group that we're concentrating on these kind of things, and we've got people from CAR actively involved in there, and it's a good way to get your voice heard. And you know, I see access or links to the At Home with Diversity course. Hopefully, have they revised that, Lori? Has anybody taken it?
I heard it was, yeah, I heard it was revised in May. I heard they're doing another revision. And then look in 2021, CAR is putting together a diversity certification. And so the program is almost done. And so I'm really looking forward to that one. I'll keep you guys posted because I'm on the board of directors for REBS, which is where we learned that these courses will be rolled out. So it's sounding like first quarter that the diversity certification from CAR will be rolled out, and that will be completely current and very well vetted to ensure that there isn't some old what's the word, beliefs or philosophies or how to communicate with certain groups are included in that.
That the course as it stands, I don't know, you know, if anybody's taken it since maybe they've updated. I don't know. I took it back when the pandemic thing started all happening. I'm like, I'm going to take my At Home with Diversity thing. I thought parts of it were just fabulous. And then I thought parts of them were so insulting and condescending. I could never do that to anybody. So I think, I'm hoping, I've heard that they are updating it, but I think next year, I think in 2021, you're going to be seeing all kinds of great, wonderful tools out there that will be more beneficial if they haven't updated the At Home with Diversity. If it gets into, I'm not going to get into what the course says, but it's bad. I was just like, there is no way I am going to go learn 2 or 3 phrases in another language with somebody that, you know, I would have had to been really rude in the first place and say, oh, excuse me, what language do you speak? So I could sit there and show that, oh, look at me. I learned how to say, here is the living room in whatever language it is, to show that I made an effort to communicate with you. I mean, I'm sorry, I would be so insulted by that. It's like, I thought we were communicating just fine here. And if I can't communicate with you, I've got a problem working with you. I should get somebody in who can speak the language and act as a translator. But I think if you go into it and they haven't done the update, Bob Hartman says that they said it's current. I hope so. So if it's been updated, go for it.
Yeah, I heard they updated it in May, but I haven't retaken it because I took it last year. So I've been told as well that it's current, but I don't know if the content has been improved since when you last took it.
I wonder if they'll give those of us that have the designation now an opportunity to take the new course at no cost. NAR Director, take that back to the board.
I'll do what I can.
Oh, heavens.
Yeah. But I think also to add on to what you just said in response to Parisha, you know, there was discussion at our CAR meeting on how do we provide additional opportunities for the groups that are underrepresented in homeownership. So that is part of the conversation as well. It's not only trying to reach that place of better equality and just treatment, but also in the rates of homeownership. And so there was, you know, some discussion on how can we do that. I think the first easiest way is to highlight some of the many resources that are available that people don't know about. I have some buyer clients that I'm working with that, you know, fall into one of these categories, and they're, you know, they can afford a new home, they just don't have the down payment. And so I've been learning about some of these resources and sending them to them and say, look, I just learned about this, because you know, it's not always on our radar. And sometimes you discover something only when you need it. But we all need to know that these other resources are just always available, not just when we need it, that just that, yes, they are available. Let's find the right program for you. So I've been learning through those processes too, that there are a lot more resources available to some of the groups that I didn't know. And so to be able to offer those out is really important. And I think we start with building that awareness that yes, there's a solution. And I told my clients, look, based on the lender looking at your financial package today, you're not qualified today, but that doesn't mean never. That means we've got to create a plan to get you there. And so that's what a lot of these groups need to understand. They just think it's unattainable. And we need to educate them that, hey, it may not be today, you know, but maybe in a year. But here's how we get there, and give them that path, educate them on that path. And my daughter's 26, and a year ago, she didn't think homeownership was going to be possible. And this year, she's actively looking and putting in offers to buy a home. Now she's getting beat out, but you know, a year ago, she didn't think it was going to be possible. And now she does, because we've been focused on, all right, what's the plan to get there? Let's educate you so that you know what it looks like, because she's hearing from all her friends, oh my God, it's so expensive now, and millennials are never going to be able to buy a home. Well, now she's educating her friends. Yes, you can, but you can't expect to buy a $10 million property in Laguna Beach just because you want to live there. Like, you have to be realistic too. But how do you get to something that is an entry level and a wealth builder start for you?
Yeah, and I think it's really important if you're running into clientele that is saying, I can't be a homeowner, that's not possible. Find a lender partner, and I mean a partner with you, that you can say, you know what, I'm not even going to tell you, let's go shop for houses today and get pre-approved and all that. You know, let's see where you sit, and let's see what needs to be done. Maybe we can get your credit score brought up. I mean, I work with a fantastic lender that she holds their hand. She'll do everything she can to get their credits repaired if they need it. And she's doing it out of the goodness of her heart to help her client. And, you know, we had one person that was like, well, we got to raise your credit score 60 points. We had 30 days to get a credit score raised, 60 points. And we had a credit repair person working on it, as well as the lender. The lender got it done where the credit repair person did it, and she got the points up to 70 points. We only needed 60, we got up 70 points. So she could help the person achieve their dream. Find a lender that will help people achieve their dreams. Tell them straight what's happening, because people don't know. Just like Lori's daughter, I've got a son that decided he wants to start looking at getting a home. My son's in the business. He has a license and works for a brokerage, and he calls up his mother and says, is it true that I need 20% down? And I'm like, oh my God, this is my kid asking this. And it's like, didn't you know your mom bought a house on a VA with 0 down? And dude, you don't need 20% down. But it's, what do we have to do to get them educated? what programs work for them, how many people have been in the military and they're veterans or active duty that don't know they don't need a penny to get into a house. These are the stories we have to carry. And Sherry Barami mentioned here, you know, that there's education about HUD supported options. Guess what? We're going to have a speaker on that's going to be able to tell us about those items, as well as mortgage forbearance ramifications and all of that good stuff. Just got their HUD approval. Look for that because it'll be coming up. She's also going to talk about fair housing and testing that's going to go on around here. And we'll have that conversation, deliberately fair housing. But, you know, there are resources out there. And if you got a good lender, they're going to know the community programs that are available. They're going to tell people, yes, you know what, FHA is a good program for you. I know everybody's going to tell you the MI up front's too expensive and the monthly MI is too expensive. If you're coming in with 3.5% down, and yeah, you got to pay the MI, but you're getting an interest rate that's maybe a quarter of a point cheaper than a conventional rate. What's not to like? Okay, it's all coming out of the same place anyhow, because, you know, the interest rates are so low now. What difference does it make how much interest you can write off? I mean, it's down to nothing. So, you know, it's there's different things out there that we need to do on an education basis. Stay here and we will help you. And also too, let us know if there's something you guys want to see, or, you know, if you want us to let you know how all of this shakes out. We'd be happy to let you know, but I just noticed it's like 11:12. And we really ran over today, but I think it was a good conversation, and spread the word to your friends, spread the word to anybody that's posting ridiculous crap out there that people are watching. In fact, even let's say, even if this NAR change to the code of ethics doesn't take place, kind of goes to Paris's comment, people are watching.
Yes.
You put stuff out there and you better be prepared for the ramifications, whether it is a horrible racial slur, if it is saying that you prefer one political party over the other, if you know, say whatever it is that you say. And you know what? This is America. We can say what we want to say. Just consider the ramifications. And if you're cool with it, you're cool with it. Find your people, you know, and I think that that's one thing that you know, people don't realize is you do put those things out there and you are going to find like-minded individuals. It's a double-edged sword, because those crazy folks are going to find more crazy folks. The people that agree with you are going to find you and say, I like that person because I like the way they think. And some of my best clients that I've had in my business is by going out and being true to who I am and being authentic with people, and they know how I think, and they like, I like you. I like you because you think like me. And they're some of my best clients to this day. So you just have to be careful how you put it out there, what you put out, but don't, you know, don't hurt anyone, but be true to yourself and be authentic, because that's going to help you too. But just be prepared for the people that don't like the authentic you, because there's going to be people out there.
Yep.
Okay.
Righty. Well, you know, I'd love to read any feedback that's in the post. You know, I am an NAR director, so I want the input. I do not claim to have all the answers. So if you pose a question, I will try to answer it based on what I've read and what I know. If I don't know the answer, that may be something that needs to be taken with me to the meeting to get that question answered. But any feedback you have, we'll post some resources. I'm not sure all of what Lisa has already posted, so her and I will get together and maybe we'll just do one post on that specific topic and include all the resources, and that way everyone is aware. But just understand there is a lot of misinformation out there, or misunderstanding of the information, I think is more appropriate.
Yeah.
So give us some feedback.
The date of the meeting, because we have somebody asking, Neela was asking, when will they be voting?
I think it's November 12th, but it might be the 13th, 12th or 13th.
Okay.
We can put that in.
So, yes, I want to say it's the 13th, somewhere right in there. But yeah, we'll let you know how it all shakes out because this is going to be very interesting. And then if in the case it does pass, you guys need to go let people know in your office because it's going to take a long time for this to get out there and, you know, get down to the masses. But, you know, we appreciate you all being here. And again, any input, you know, actually send Lori direct messages. You know, if you have any, you know, questions, if you're an Orange County realtor that wants to let your voice be heard, you know, you can put it in the comments here, but if you want to go into it in greater detail, I'm just taking liberty to tell you to contact Lori.
I welcome it. I have a lot of meetings coming up, so I can't guarantee I'll answer my phone, but I would love to hear the input for sure. So yeah, feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. On that note, I think we're going to wrap it up because we've gone way over our time limit, but thank you all for coming today. We so appreciate it. If you have not voted, vote. Whatever you do, don't put it in a mailbox though. Vote, vote, vote. Get out there, hand carry your ballot, drop it off in the drop box, hand it to somebody at a polling place. Go use a machine if you're so inclined, but be sure to vote. Every vote is important. And if you haven't gotten in your mailbox your realtor party, I guess they're kind of endorsed candidates. Just, you know, I'll do just real brief here. Orange County Realtor Party, not Democrats, not Republicans, Realtor, who's best for our business? Katie Porter, Harley Ruda, Gil Cisneros, I believe his name is. Oh my God, my favorite guy out there. Luke Correa, that's who it is. Congress people that we're supporting actively right now, and you should be receiving mail coming to your house stating Realtor Party to realtors for the candidates that are going to help us keep being able to do business. So there we have it. I'll get off my soapbox. I am done.
Important. Vote, vote, vote.
Okay, guys, have a good week.
Thanks,
Take care. Be safe. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Yeah, bye.